Hello, everyone. I can see people joining again. Familiar names. Thomas is here. Jax is here. Sarah is also here. John, hello. So I'm just going to give everyone like 10 seconds, 50 seconds, so everybody can start to join the virtual room or the virtual event. Welcome, everyone. While we wait for more people to join, I'm just going to load my presentation. So there you go. Okay, there's more and more people attending, and it's 3 minutes past 4 o'clock. So time for us to start. So welcome everyone to another startup seminars. I'm your host, Rui. You probably know me from the previous seminars, and welcome. So as you know, tonight, or rather this afternoon, we'll have Rushina, Shah, the founder of Insane Grain, how to build an awesome brand. So next week, we have our final startup seminar. We have a fantastic panel on how to fund your business. These are a group of brilliant people. If you haven't signed up yet, please use the QR code. So point your phone to the QR code so you can register and come to our final seminar. In March, we'll see the return of the City Spark workshops. So we are helping students and recent graduates of City University to start and develop their business idea. This will lead nicely to City Spark, which I will allude to next. So again, use a QR code if you need help to start and develop that business idea that you have. In April, as I was saying, we have City Spark, the grand final. We will see 10 students battling for 5 awards of £5,000 each. That's a total of £25,000 prize pots. And you can find out more at www.city-spark.co.uk. Or again, point your phone to that QR code in order to find out more. I should highlight that the deadline to apply for City Spark is the 24th of March. So be quick to apply or to find out more about the competition. In order to help you with City Spark competition, we are offering business advice, so one-to-one startup support with myself and other members of the team. So book an advice session with one of us and we can help you to bring your idea to life. We can also support you with your City Spark application. To find out more about what we do at City Ventures, you can go to cityventures.co.uk or you can email us at cityventures@city.ac.uk. So now put your virtual hands together and let's welcome Rushina to the stage. Rushina, hello. Hello, hello. Rushina, you muted. Oh,
hi, everyone.
Hi. Hello, Rushina, good to see you. Welcome to the Startup Seminars. This was just a brief introduction on yourself. I have a few things that I would like to read about yourself. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to do it in a second, as soon as the document loads up. So Rushina, before we get to that, where are you calling us from or where are you tuning us from?
I'm based in my office in Vauxhall. So we've just started building a team for my new business, which I'll talk you through in a second.
Okay.
So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on the new office and the team. I hope that 2022 is the year that we see Insane Grain going insane. So, Rushina is the founder and the director of Insane Grain, the healthy snacks brand championing sorghum. I'm curious about sorghum, but I will let Rushina tell us more about that in a second. So Rushina's journey is incredible. After working in corporate brand management, Rushina decided to go on her own in 2017. So Insane Grain, from my research, I saw that is listed in many stores, including Sainsbury's and Owen and Barros. Along the way, Rushina so far has been many awards. So I was able to see that Rushina was listed on Forbes 30 Under 30, Grocer's Top Talents 2018, NatWest Great British Entrepreneur 2018 finalist, and many, many others. So Rushina, this is quite an impressive CV, and it's something that started quite recently. In the questions that I normally ask the people joining our seminars would go, one that I always like to ask is, what kind of entrepreneur do you think you are? Do you think that you are a thinker, a maker, a fixer, a combination of the three. So who are you really, if you could use in one word?
Oh, it's hard to say in one word. I guess resilience would probably come to mind. I recently spoke to the founder of Reebok, Joe Foster, and he was saying that resilience is the number one word which I guess defines an entrepreneur. And it really stuck with me because you're naturally going to have hiccups along the ways. You're going to get more no's than you get yeses. So it's all around just keep doing it. So I say resilience, yeah.
Okay, interesting. I was talking to City alumni recently, part of the startup seminars, and they said basically the same thing, just do it, like a bit like the Nike motto, just do it and get on with it. Rushina, another question that I had for you was, what kind of interest did you have when you were a student at university level? Was that anything that was kind of luring you into entrepreneurship? What interest did you have that helped you to go this way?
I think I've sort of always had this entrepreneurial spark, I like to call it. So I think back to when I was I think it was 15 years old, I was at school and I started up a mini business on the side selling these mugs. I call them magic mugs because when you put hot water into them, a picture appeared. And it ended up winning a prize at this business awards thing. And I think that gave me momentum. So then when I was 16, I then organized this charity event. I'd gone to this orphanage in India. Absolutely felt really passionate about it. So came back within a week, put together this show and ended up raising £15,000. So as a 16-year-old, I was just so excited that I was able to raise this 15 grand for these children in India. So I think in terms of like the business acumen and the entrepreneurial spark, there's always been something in me which knew I wanted to do more rather than working just for a corporate, at the same time building the skill sets from a corporate first before taking that big leap.
Even more interesting is, like you said, at the age of 16, which is quite young in your life. So well done. So I'll finish off with a question about what keeps you excited about entrepreneurship. What and how has your life changed since you became your own boss or an entrepreneur?
I think firstly, no 2 days are the same. There's constantly so many different things that you're involved in. So as a founder, one day I'm working on the legal side of the business. The next day I'm working on the sales side. Next day I'm pitching to retail buyers. Everything is so varied, which is really exciting, but also having the ownership of it. So obviously there's loads of no's and there's loads of setbacks, but when you do get a win, it feels a million times more exciting than if it was for another company or someone else. So having that real ownership kind of gives you motivation and drive, but also it's so much more rewarding when you then secure a retail listing or you secure something that you've put your heart and soul into.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. A lot of people allude to the fact that it's your baby, so
exactly.
therefore, Rushina, those were my questions. I would urge the participants to use the Q&A button as we go along to ask questions. I'll leave you now in the good hands of Rushina that will share with us a journey with It's Ingrained.
Perfect. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Let me know.
It's coming up. It's loaded now, Rushina. I'm going to turn off my camera. Good luck, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you.
Brilliant. So I was tasked by Rui to talk to you guys about how to build an awesome brand. So I sat down and really thought about it because it's a very kind of varied question. And I thought I wanted to have tangible ways in which you could take away from this session and really sit down and be able to build an awesome brand. And then I thought the word brand doesn't really do it justice. And so I changed the title to How to Build an Awesome Love Mark. You might be wondering, what is a love mark? So there was a guy called Kevin Roberts, who was a CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi, and he said it's no longer enough to just be a brand. The future of where our country is going is all around building love marks. So the way to define a love mark is through the spectrum on the right side. So you'll see on the left corner, at the bottom, it's products. So products which have low love and low respect. So I think of, for example, a screwdriver. There's no brand loyalty. Consumers don't really care about it. There's low love, low respect. On the right side of that is fads. So things that have short-term high love, but then are not respected because consumers will drop it after a week or two. So it's got a time constraint. Then in the top left corner, you've got brands. So I think about brands like Hellmann's or Hovis bread. There's high respect for them because they've been around for years and years, but there's low love because consumers are willing to switch over to something else. Then in the top right, which is the ideal segment, is the love mark brands. So they're brands which are highly loved and highly respected. I think of an example as like Innocent Drinks. It's got a lot of love. There's a lot of brand loyalty, and consumers don't tend to switch between different brands and their competitors. So they're very much highly respected as well. And that's taken time to build over. So I think it's more about building love marks rather than just brands. And I know Rui touched on this slightly, but I guess I wanted to tell you why I'm the right person to do this presentation, essentially. So I started off my career where the CEO, Kevin Roberts, was at, so Saatchi & Saatchi, one of the biggest creative agencies in the world. Worked on lots of different brands there. Then I moved over to Reckitt Benckiser, so more of the corporate side. So the difference between a creative agency and a large corporation is that the corporations actually own the brands. So Reckitt Benckiser owns a lot of healthcare brands such as Nurofen, Gaviscon, E45, Durex, etc. And then I moved over to Procter & Gamble. So I was at Procter & Gamble for just over 5 years. They own brands like Gillette, Pampers, Pantene, Herbal Essences. So all of these brands that I would consider as a love mark. And over there, I was a brand manager. So I was responsible for essentially taking a brand and growing it. It was like owning my own mini business. So I looked after all sides and all aspects of the brand. And then I thought to myself, why am I working on love marks when I could essentially create one on my own? So I was looking for inspiration, and I saw my aunt popping this grain in the kitchen. And it was this grain that I'd heard about. It was called sorghum, but I didn't realize how amazingly nutritious it was. And my aunt, she's a traditional Indian auntie, she said to me, oh, it's amazing for you, but she's kind of one of those women that tells me everything's amazing for me. So I didn't believe her. I then sent the product for nutritional testing and found that actually she was right. So it had far better micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, than anything else that I could see in the category. So it was really then that I decided to quit my corporate job and set the business up full time. And I really wanted a co-founder who had a level of experience also within the FMCG industry. So FMCG stands for fast moving consumer goods. So pretty much every product that you have in your household will fit within the FMCG category. So I approached Nigel Parrott, and he had over 30 years experience working on lots of different brands. He worked in the soup category, he'd worked on snacks. And I told him about my idea, and he recognized that there was a clear white space and decided to co-found Insane Grain with me. That's when we set up Insane Grain, which looks like this. So we've worked across lots of different iconic love marks. So you can see a selection of the different brands here across lots of different categories. And when I was thinking about this topic, I recognized that actually across them, there's similarities, and the way that these brands have been built all stem from this process. So I'll take you through the process in a second. But taking a step back, what then is a brand? So simply put, your brand is defined by your customers' overall perception of your business or your products. And Jeff Bezos explained it really well. He said, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And that can be both your product-based brand, but also your personal brand. And that's really important because your personal brand is what you're defined as. So when your friends, your family, or an acquaintance talks about you, what 3 words would you want them to describe you as? And that essentially is your brand. So then I looked at what are the 7 steps to really building an awesome love mark. Firstly, define your brand purpose. So really, why do you exist? There's so many products in the market, and there's so many oversaturated categories. So if you think about, for example, the hair care category, there's so many brands within the hair care category. If you're launching a new brand into the category, you really have to have a reason to exist. You also have to really solve a problem. So again, I hear and I speak to so many founders who say, oh, I'm launching a snack brand. And they don't really solve for a problem. So they'll launch into the market, but then they'll disappear within a couple of years because there's no real problem that they're solving for, and they're not really targeting a specific audience. Think about what differentiates you. Why is a consumer going to pick your brand over another brand? And then why should people care? So what is it about your business that's really evoking some sort of emotion? So not just being a product, but really having a whole personality and ethos around you. The light in this room is just switched off, so I'm going to be back in 1 second. I'm just going to switch it on again. Sorry, guys. So then I had a look at an example. So I thought about how does this fit with my brand Insane Grain? So why do we exist? We are not just another snack brand, but we are bringing out something that is genuinely nutritious. When you look at the snacks category, there's so many products in the market, but the ones that tend to be cheaper, around a 80p price point, are the ones that are really unhealthy. Brands like What's It, Monster Munch, lots of fat, lots of oil. So the reason we exist is to deliver a genuinely healthier product, which goes above and beyond just being gluten-free and vegan, which is what everything else in the category is serving, and also being at a price point that is accessible to everyone. A lot of the healthier snacks in the market tend to be more expensive, and therefore it's harder for all income households to purchase it. And so that's really why we exist. And that's the problem that we're solving for, is delivering an ingredient, so sorghum, in our range, which allows us to be more nutritionally beneficial. And we're solving the problem of there not being a gap in the market. They're not being products in the market which are genuinely nutritious at a price point that's affordable. What then differentiates us is these claims that we have on the front of our packs. So you can see that we compare our products to natural fruit and vegetables, and we compare the vitamins and mineral claims across them. And we also have a probiotic in our range, which gives the consumer gut health benefits. And there's no other product doing that in the market at the minute. And so there's a reason for a consumer to pick up our range versus someone else's. And then why should people care? So we're not just a product-based brand, but we also do good in the world. So everything I want the brand and the company to stand for is doing things insanely good. And that includes to both our people and the planet. So we're currently working with female-led entrepreneurs and farmers in India and Africa to source our grain, and then also working on a project to help reduce childhood obesity. So really having a wider purpose rather than just a product-based business. And Simon Sinek explained this really well. So he said, people don't buy what you do, but they buy why you do it. So if you look at the something called the golden circle, you start from the outer end. The what is the product or the service that you offer to the consumers. The how is how you're different, the thing that differentiates you from the competition. And the why is the reason why you exist. And what we call the why in sort of the marketing world is the reason to believe. The second step in the 7-step process is to identify your target audience and your competitors. So I've given an example on the right side of Insane Grain. We really delved deep into this. So we didn't just say we're a brand focused on millennials, because that's too broad. We really understood everything about this consumer, and we identified it as something called the issue. So young, savvy, hip, and urbanite. Sorry, there we go. And also looking at the audience as well. So the gender, the age, the income levels, everything about that consumer, and then digging deeper into who your competitive sets are. So creating subsets. So for example, on Insane Grain, we both have competition with healthier products in the market, but of course they tend to be above a £1 price point. And then also the subset of unhealthy snacks in the market. So What's It's, Walkers, Monster Munch, Skips, all of those ones. And then looking at pricing as well. So having a look at what is our specific pricing proposition. Do we want to be a premium brand, or do we want to be a mass market, more affordable brand? So for Insane Grain, I had a look at that and I identified a clear white space, which is the third point. So map out where your white space is. So if you take the snacks category, for example, I identified that there was an opportunity for a healthier product, which was below a £1 price point. So mapping this out on the axes at the top, I put healthy, and then the reverse, so the opposite, unhealthy at the bottom, then above £1 and below £1. I mapped out all the products that were our competitors and saw that there was a clear white space in this area for a genuinely healthier snack below £1. And that's, of course, where Insane Grain fits in. Then build your brand equity pyramid. So the starting point to this is to put together a mood board. So I literally just cut up old magazines, had a look at pictures online, and put together what type of brand that we want to associate ourselves with, but also looking at the different creatives, our types of fonts that we want to use. If there were certain colors that were associated with the brand, put that all into a mood board. And then as part of this, we also built something called a brand equity pyramid. So you start from the bottom up. So you start with what we make. So we make sorghum-based super grain snacks. That bottom part of the pyramid can change. So it's ever evolving. And it's something that as we make different products, we make more products, that will expand. Then the reason to believe. So what makes us really unique? What's our point of differences versus competition? Then our physical benefits, these can be similar to other healthy or other healthier snacks in my instance, but other products. So things that are good for you, things that are vegan, gluten-free, other products are doing it. So it's our points of similarity. Then emotional benefits. So what's going to evoke some sort of emotion in the consumer and the types of feelings that we want them to feel. Personality. So with this one, it's if we were at a dinner party, what would our character, if the brand was a person, what would they be called and what would they be defined as? Values. So for us, it's making a difference and going against the grain. What do we really stand for? And then essence is the overarching thing. This thing should never, ever change. It defines what the company stands for. So for Insane Grain, it's insanely good. So we have insanely nutritious products, insanely delicious products, insanely good to the people. So the CSR program that I mentioned earlier in terms of working with female-led entrepreneurs and farmers in India and Africa and helping to reduce childhood obesity. And then insanely good to the planet. So having a clear sustainability benefit as well. So you essentially build the whole pyramid from the bottom up, and everything you do then relates back to this. So in a year's time, in 10 years' time, this pyramid shouldn't really change except the bottom part of the pyramid. And that you can always make sure that anything that goes in front of a consumer or to a retailer or a buyer always fits within these buckets. Then the fifth step is to design your love mark look. So this includes your name, your logo, your fonts, your colors, your imagery, and your tone of voice. So in terms of your name, you want to make sure that you're picking a memorable name. So there's different types of buckets, and I try to split this out. So made up names, things like Pepsi, Kodak, What's-Its. You've got metaphor names, things like Nike, Reebok, Amazon. You've got founders' names, which tends to be something which was quite traditional. So a lot of brands about 100 years ago would have started with using their surnames. So Warburtons, Walkers, Cadbury's. Other names, such as Wendy's and McDonald's. Common words that are used like Apple, Little Moons, Dove. Word combinations, so face and book to create Facebook, and you and tube to create YouTube. Acronyms like KFC, BBC, and Adidas. Altered words, so a word which adds either LY at the end or LR or two other letters or a combination of other letters. And descriptive and emotive brands, so words like innocent, insane grain, or virgin. Now, with this one, I've seen a transition over the years where previously it was okay to have made up names because there were so few number of brands. Now that the market is much more saturated, it means that a lot of brands have to be more descriptive. You really have to convey what the product does. So if you take Insane Grain, for example, we're talking about the superior insane grain. If you take Innocent, for example, everything they do is really natural and clean. And the same with Virgin as well. So there's been a transition over the years to more descriptive, emotive brand names. Then you also, of course, have the logo, has to be recognizable. I think of Nike as the brand that really stands out with the tick. It's recognizable and it will stand the test of time. Fonts, so making sure you're keeping it consistent. Across this presentation, you'll see I've been using the same font as the title and the same font as the lettering in the main text. So making sure that you're always keeping that consistent across the presentation or any piece of work that you're doing as part of the brand. Imagery, referring back to your mood board, does it fit within your overall mood board? So with imagery, for example, with Insane Grain, we always make sure that the shocked face is consistent. So you've got similar shock faces always in grey. We've got the pattern in the background. We've got the product image always there, and the logo never changes. So we've always got the black logo with the orange writing on the side, and then we've got illustrative imagery as well. And then tone of voice. You always want to make sure that this is kept consistent. And I think innocent drinks do a really great example of this. So across all of the different touch points, they're always making sure that their tone of voice is really tongue in cheek, it's fun, it's relatable. So making sure that's always consistent as well. And then once you've got all of those things, it's all around assessing it. So the way I like to explain it is the five finger rule. So firstly, is your brand simple? So your pinky finger. Is it easy to remember? Is it really simple? And does it convey exactly what it does? Is it emotional? Does it, so emotional is your ring finger. Is it evoking some sort of emotion, whether it's excitement or if it's love or if it's, I mean, yeah, any emotion, that's how you remember it and that's how you assess it. Is it distinctive? So your thumb obviously is distinctive versus the other four fingers. Is it unique and is it really going to stand out? Does it have lots of points of differences that your competitors don't have? Action driven, does it tell you what to do? Does the product encourage you to purchase it? Because ultimately that's what a business is. You want to really drive revenue and you really want to drive sales. And then your middle finger, which I won't put up to show you, but recognizable. So is it something that will stand the test of time, but also be recognized in different countries? Is it really iconic to your brand? So if this is sat next to another brand, will you remember it in 5 years' time? So then taking Insane Grain as an example, I've sort of gone through this, but you can see with emotional, it evokes sort of humor, fun, excitability, and everything else in the category tends to be quite boring, quite flat. So it's really recognizable, also simple because we're keeping it quite clean in terms of the white packaging, where everything else in the category is really colored and bright. Action driven, we're telling you what the product is. We're making sure there's flavor cues to encourage you to purchase it. And distinctive. So again, when you see it on a shelf, it really stands out and it's really unique. And then the seventh point is to keep it consistent across all touch points. And I think Innocent Drinks do a really great job of this. You can see from the coloring, the text that they use, their tone of voice. So this is always a really great example. At the bottom of their bottles, they write, "Stop looking at my bottom," which they keep consistent across all their products. Their font usage, and it's whether you're on social media or whether you're on Facebook or Instagram, or any of the social media platforms, or if you're on their website, or if you're in a store, you instantly recognize that it all comes from this one brand. So those are the 7 steps on how to actually build a love mark. And what an awesome love mark does in a crowded category, it's able to still stand out. So I took the example of the hair care category at Procter & Gamble because I worked in this category. And you get a retail buyer saying to you, well, why do I need all 4 brands on a shelf? And the reason for this is because they all have their own unique audience and they all have a reason to believe. They're all owned by the same company, yet they still have been able to stand the test of time because they've got such recognizable love marks. So the audience for Aussie is someone who's looking for more conditioning. The audience for Head & Shoulders is someone who's got an itchy scalp or dandruff. The audience for Herbal Essences is more about the millennial, the younger audience who cares about new and exciting ingredients and smells and scents of the products. And Pantene is all about the consumer who looks for healthier, stronger hair. And the reason to believe in each of those is that the products and usage within each of those is unique. So Aussie is all around conditioning, Head & Shoulders is all around ingredients to help reduce the issue that the audience is facing, so the itchy scalp and dandruff. Herbal Essence is all around using unique first-to-market ingredients and amazing scents. And Pantene is all around the vitamins included to help strengthen your hair. So there's a reason for all of those to actually exist in the category. If you were to launch another hair care brand, it would have to really have a different audience and a different reason to believe. So to summarize, essentially, the 7 steps to building an awesome love mark. So the first one, obviously, is define your brand purpose. Secondly, identify your target audience and competitors. Third, map out your white space opportunity. Fourth, build your brand equity pyramid from the bottom up, never changing the top, but you can amend the bottom part of the pyramid. Number 5 is design your love mark look, the logo, the brand feel, the tone of voice, everything that encompasses that brand. 6 is to assess it using the hand model, so the example that I gave. And then 7 is to really make sure that once you've got that brand, keep it consistent and keep it holistic so that it stands the test of time. Excellent. So that was a quick whiz through everything. I know I went through that really fast. Also, because I couldn't see you guys, I don't know if you had questions in between.
So we have some questions, Rushina. Well, let me start off by saying what an amazing presentation. Thank you so much for the load of insights. I was actually writing down a few notes even for my own reference. This was an excellent way of laying out the foundation of how to build an amazing brand using Insane Grain and other brands as an example. I should highlight that once I bumped into Insane Grain, the first thing that came to my mind was fun. I've just loved the old lady in the packs. It's very colorful. It's very animated. It inspires trust, I would say. And one of the things that I really like now looking at your presentation and also looking at the packs that you have is the caloric values are actually highlighted with color. And that to me is very telling of a simple brand or a smaller brand in comparison to maybe Nestle is going out of the way to make the world a better place, I guess. So Rushina, well done on the presentations. We have a few questions, but burning question for me is: would you say that value proposition, purpose, and brands go hand in hand?
Value proposition, purpose, and what was the third one?
Brand or branding go hand in hand, because I was looking at your pyramid, and which I found super interesting. I was looking at the diagram of the white mark, even the white space, and it seems that all of these things relate to one another. So I wanted to hear more. I kind of know the answer, but I wanted to hear more on your thoughts.
I think if you look at the pyramid, the top of it is the absolute most important part, so your essence. So what you stand for as a brand in terms of more than just being a product-based business, essentially. So I'd say your essence is the number one thing. What you do can alter. So I take an example. If I take Insane Grain, for example, Insane Grain at the minute is called Insane Grain. So we're talking about the grain that is insane. We could branch out into other products such as milks or drinks or other things, and then it would be Insane Milk or whatever the name would be for it. But essentially, if you have a core brand proposition, then it doesn't matter what you fit into it in terms of the bottom part of the pyramid, because your what can change so long as your core values and everything you at the top of the pyramid remains the same. Yeah. Other things that can change slightly, for example, are your points of differences. So again, at the minute, our points of differences are these claims that we have on the pack. These are going to change depending on obviously the product. So your points of differences will adapt as well. But so I'd say the most important part is your essence. So your values and your essence at the top.
Okay. Thank you. And you mentioned Innocent, which in terms of branding is one of my favorite companies that there is. Now, questions from the audience, and we have quite a few interesting questions here. So Lisa, thank you, Lisa, for your question, and thank you for joining us again. I'm reading bits in the background about sorghum, and it seems that it's also sustainable and environmentally friendly. Given your target audience, do you think this could be incorporated within your brand, or would it complicate the message?
I think there's a difference between incorporated into the brand and incorporated into the product. So we do incorporate it into the brand. So if you think about the essence, ours is insanely good. So everything we do is insanely good, including insanely good to the planet. So the sustainability message is more of what our business stands for. On the pack and the product itself, it would get too complicated. So we essentially had to decide on what the consumer actually wants. So if you go back to the white space and you look at what for Insane Grain specifically, what is the reason we believe? And the reason we believe is because we are a healthier alternative and we're at a price point which is accessible to the mass market. So if you remember my white space part that I had. And for that reason, those are the two messages that we want to communicate. If we talk about sustainability as well, it just overcomplicates the conversation. There's too many messages for a consumer to understand. And the reason that big brands can do that is because they've already established the main reason to believe. So if we take Pantene, for example, Pantene has already established that they're a brand for stronger hair. You take Herbal Essences, for example, they've already established that they're a brand for unique ingredients and scents. And because of that, they have the ability to take it that one step and one layer further. So with Insane Grain, essentially, it is something we will do eventually in terms of communicating the sustainability benefits. or in touch points, which isn't the pack. So for example, our website or social media, and when we're talking to retail buyers, but it's not a reason for a consumer to pick up our product, because even though it is better for the planet, it's not something that it's not a reason why they would choose our brand over something else. Sorry guys, my lights just switched off again. 1 second.
The beauty of live events, keep your questions coming, please, because Rushina will be answering them. I can see a few more coming.
That's a sign that I'm not moving enough.
That's okay. It's the beauty of live events. I live it. So Rushina, I'm going now to pick up on an interesting question from Ada. Thank you, Ada, for your question. So Ada said that you mentioned that's about having somewhat a personal brand or gravitas in your presentation. So the question from Ada is, how can a startup or brand get ahead if there is no face associated to that brand? So sometimes I can see it working in favor, working against. So what are your thoughts?
I don't think it is a necessity, because obviously people are different. Some people don't like being in front of the camera. Some people don't like talking about the fact that they're the founder. At the same time, I do see strength in doing so. So it might not be that you speak and you're the brand or the personality to talk to consumers, but you might still be, and you should still be, the person to speak to retail buyers. So when I'm pitching a product to, let's say, Sainsbury's, I always make sure that I'm in the room, I'm talking to them, and I think to myself, what are the things that I want them to take away in terms of who I am as a person and what my brand stands for? And so you don't necessarily need to have a personal brand in terms of in front of consumers and consumer facing, but at the same time, big retailers like Sainsbury's get so many meetings with companies like Procter & Gamble, Reckitt Benckiser, and they're all in suits and they walk in and it's all very serious. And so it's almost quite refreshing when someone like me comes in and I'm in a jumper which says Insane Grain on a bright orange jumper, and I walk in and I'm just talking to them and a bit more lively. And that's what I mean by your personal brand. It doesn't have to be in front of a consumer, but it's something that's going to get their buyer to remember when they're making decisions on what products are going to be on the range. Do I want to stock someone who's really doing it for corporate to tick a box and they do it for their job every day? Or do I want to help someone who's set up this business from scratch and is super passionate about it and is going to put in every hour that they possibly can in their day to make this a success? So I think there's a difference between your personal brand with consumers and your personal brand with in front of retail buyers.
Makes total sense. Now you got me thinking, is there Insane Grain merchandise that we can
There
find
is,
out?
yes.
There is.
You go onto our website, we've got some t-shirts, we've got hats, we've got sunglasses, we've got, yeah, some bits.
Okay. I sort of can see that working, because looking again at the packaging, and it's quite vibrant, it's quite summery, and
It's been really popular.
So yeah. So Rushina, another question here, and this is kind of a follow-up. This question is from Clarice. Thank you, Clarice, for your question. You can clearly communicate the look and feel and differentiators, etc., through packaging. So how do you do that if your company is a service? How do you translate that into a product that is a service? Not a product that is a service, but a service that is a service.
I guess a service still has a brand identity. So if I think of a plumbing company, so it's more the business versus the product-based brand. Mm-hmm. A plumbing company still has a brand. So I think of Pimlico Plumbers as an example. Mm-hmm. Kind of thinking out loud here, so bear with me. But
you are in Vauxhall, so
yes, exactly. So Pimlico Plumbers, they have a distinctive red, blue, and white branding. They still are known for having professionals in the space, but also at a cheaper price point, or a price point which is more accessible. And also they're really quick and mobile. So that's what the brand stands for. And if you think about their pyramid, what they deliver is a standard plumbing service, but where their essence is, I don't know what their essence is, but their essence could be something like professional, always, I mean, I'm thinking out loud, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
And so it doesn't necessarily just have to be your product, so long as it fits the 5 spaces. So that business, that service-based business, will still have a website. They'll still probably have social media accounts. They'll still be talking to consumers. Just because it's not product-based doesn't mean that they don't have a logo or a brand imagery and other personality bits that can come to life. So I would think of it as your business, your brand business, rather than product-based branding?
I was thinking about Google, for example, which is mostly a service-driven company, and we can think of a multitude of different services that they have, from Google Drive to Google Calendar to Google Keep to YouTube to all of that, and they all have a bit of a story behind them, and sometimes they're just purely a service that is online. We know what they are in essence. We just want them to stand for something. So does it have too many ads? Does it have too many? Can I have different features? Can I try different things? So yeah, it's very interesting what you were saying, and even alluding to Pimlico Plumbers, because the colors that they have is quite distinctive as a brand itself. The vans that people drive around. A question from me now, Rushina, that got me thinking as you were presenting, because you were presenting big brands versus your brand. So in your opinion, of course, what are the advantages or disadvantages of, say, a smaller brand versus a big brand, particularly in, as you alluded already, a very saturated world with so much being done, so much being said. And sometimes I personally get the feeling that bigger brands are taking forever to adapt to new consuming habits. So in your opinion, what has been the advantages and also the disadvantages of being Insane Grain versus, I don't know, Procter & Gamble, for example?
Really good question. I think because I've got experience both at a corporate and at a startup, I can kind of relay what I would see as the advantages and disadvantages. So advantages are that we're starting from a blank piece of paper. When I was at P&G, we were given, for example, my first day at P&G, I was given Flash, the surface care brand, and they said, it's up to you to go grow that. So I actually spoke to Pimlico Plumbers, and I tried to kind of put together a brand campaign and a marketing campaign to encourage them to sell one every time they went into a store they went into a house, they encouraged consumers to buy it. So I didn't really necessarily have a blank piece of paper because they already had established what the brand stood for. Here on my own brand, I started from nothing. So I was able to shape the brand how I thought would fit best. And then also being able to be agile. So essentially it's me running the show. I've got a team, but it's also, I make the decisions and approval within the approval process. So at P&G, I would make decisions, but I'd have to get so many people to sign it off, which was obviously time consuming. And by the time I had it signed off, things had obviously evolved drastically. And so I'm able to be much more agile and almost more innovative and think 3 steps ahead and really execute much quicker. The disadvantages are that being a startup, you obviously have very little funding. So it means that, I guess that's got a pro and a con, because if you've got less funding, you have to think of creative ways to execute things. In a big corporate, we had massive budgets. So on Pantene, I had like a £2.5 million budget to spend on marketing, which means I sort of just throw it and see what hits, and I can test more on different activities. With Insane Grain, I've self-funded it, and then I also got investment from Warburton's, so the bread company, as part of a VC sort of setup. And as part of that, I've got the kind of setup of a corporate, all the benefits of having a kind of corporate, got some funding, and have been able to scale. So I think the advantages and disadvantages, I would personally say the advantages of being a startup and being able to be more agile, and the disadvantages are things that we can overcome as a startup, things like funding or, I think that's probably the main disadvantage.
Okay. Yeah, but, well, being lean, ready to pivot, ready to adapt, versus a big corporate or a big conglomerate. I tend to tell the students that I meet or that I speak to that scarcity sometimes is where the best ideas come from. Because if you are given a limited time and a limited budget, you would probably struggle to flip the question in the direction that you want to, or the brand, the direction that you want to. A question now from Thomas, and this is more of a question going back to the time that you were at university level. Thomas, thank you for your question. So the question is very simple. How, if at all, did your philosophy degree help you as an entrepreneur?
Good question, and you've done your research. I would say that I actually get asked this question quite a bit, and I got asked this question in my interview. I remember when I was applying for P&G, and I had this prepared answer, and a lot of it is applicable in the sense that with philosophy, you're constantly thinking outside the box and you're constantly trying to find solutions to problems that probably are hard to find, and you spend, I guess, quite a lot of time to try and think of a different way of interpreting something versus someone else. And I think that's applicable when you're an entrepreneur because, for example, the other day I had a logistics issue. So we had a massive supply chain issue. These boxes weren't fitting onto our pallets of lorries. And essentially I had to think outside of the box on how do I get the boxes onto the pallet. And so I think in terms of your skill set and the skills that you develop from your time at university, or for my example, the degree doing philosophy really does enable you and really does help. And then as part of my degree as well, I did some business side of things as well. So it wasn't just a straight philosophy degree, it was philosophy, a bit of econ, a bit of business studies. So again, it helped to shape the basics and put that in place. The best thing though is actually getting stuck and doing it. So of course, there's certain skills that I can learn from my time at university, but nothing has taught me as much as really just doing it myself and being thrown right in the deep end.
Of course. And you said before that at the age of 16, you're already making a few bucks selling products. Question from Jenny. So what brands do you admire and why?
Hard not to say Innocent because I think they're just brilliant. I also think Warburton's is a really amazing brand. I'm not just saying that because they're one of our investors, but Warburton's was set up 100 years ago or whatever. And Warburton's are still a family-run business. They obviously have lots of other people in the company, but they still keep that ethos. They still keep that genuine need to support smaller businesses and still acting as if they're a small brand. I also think of Aussie Hair Care as an example as well. And again, I worked in that brand at Procter & Gamble, but a lot of people don't know that it's owned by Procter & Gamble. And so I think they've done a really great job of making consumers believe that they still are a small brand, even though it's not. And I think those are the ones that, especially because of the pandemic, there's so many consumers who now want to support smaller businesses, want to support smaller brands. So I think Aussie's actually done a great job of still being a corporate and having the support and funding from a corporate, but being seen as a smaller brand and therefore getting the audience of the younger millennials who want to still support the smaller brands and smaller businesses.
Thank you. Question for me, and maybe with my question we can wrap up yet another fantastic seminar and an amazing story, Rushina, let me say that. What advice as a young entrepreneur yourself, as a person that has an established brand, we can see it on the shelves. I'm definitely going to check the merchandise because I just love how colorful your branding is. What advice would you give to our community of students and recent graduates should they want to maybe start a business or even are considering starting a business? What advice or advices or tips, tricks would you give them? Would you like to give them?
I'd say it's really following my 7 steps, because I have had the experience of before Insane Grain, I set up a brand and it was the same product, but the brand was called Notcorn, Not.corn. And what that does is it explains what the product isn't, but it doesn't say what the product is. And that's why I put the 7 steps in place, because I wanted to make sure that I guess you guys have the sort of Bible, which then explains how to build a brand. So I'd say I wish someone had told me that sooner, because it would have enabled me to follow a step and process to build a brand. And then in terms of advice, I would say it's not easy. Being brutally honest, it's not easy, but the reward is so worth it. So really keep going and persevere and have resilience and do it. And it's kind of like you said, really like the Nike slogan, just do it. Just get out there, research your market, put yourself out there, network, speak to lots of different people. If you guys have any questions, you can drop me a message, you can email me, or drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'm happy to help. But I think it's all around speaking to and coming to events like this as well, where you're gaining experience from people who've done it before. And it's so important to do that, because we've gone through the hard bits and hopefully we can teach you and help you avoid the same sort of mistakes.
Okay. Time for one last question, this time from Duyan, because it just came in. You clearly are, Rushina, the heart and soul of your business. How do you navigate your passion for your products and vision and allow other people to come in?
Say that again, sorry, Rui.
I'm going to reread the questions. How do you navigate your passion for your products and your vision and allow other people to chip in or to jump in?
Me, my team sort of like to have the same sort of, I think it's giving them accountability. So still making them feel as if they're the founder of the brand and business themselves. And we're able to still do that. We're a relatively small team. So I want them to feel that they're adding value. I think in a corporate, there's so many different people. You don't really feel like you're adding value to this one brand when there's hundreds of people looking after this one brand. Here with my team, everything they do, and for example, if they're pitching to Morrison's or Sainsbury's or Holland & Barrett, if they get that listing, that's on them and they've achieved that themselves. So they get that same sort of excitement and passion behind it. And even when I'm interviewing, I can notice when someone is genuinely passionate about the product and the brand. So we're creating that kind of company culture. We're still at the earlier stages of the business. So enabling us to do that, I'm trying to make sure that I'm still instilling that kind of passion and excitement, team building exercises, making sure that we're always kind of excited about everyone's working on a day-to-day basis and they're building brand with me.
Okay, so you are indeed the heart and soul of this company. Rushina, thank you so much for your time today. For those asking if the presentation can be shared, the seminar has been recorded. We will make it available on YouTube for you to see or to play it or replay it. Rushina, once again, thank you so much for all of our attendees. Please do join us for our last seminar next week about funding. Rushina has already been alluding about some of the stuff, but next week we'll have a fantastic panel. This is all we have time for today. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. And in doubts, go insane grade.
There we go.
Rushina, thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.